I'm Brian Juris with Gear Hideout, and behind me is an Orbea Orca from 2015. It is a Spanish-made bicycle. It's one of the few carbon bikes made outside of Taiwan, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on this wonderful bike. It was used at Interbike 2015, and it's been a showpiece. Fortunately, I've gotten to ride it over the last couple months, and I'm here to talk about the ride qualities, whether or not I think it's a good bike, and how it compares to some of the bikes I've had in the past. So as I just mentioned, Orbea is a Spanish bicycle manufacturer. Most of their frames are going to be made in Taiwan, just like any other company that you would see. A lot of frames these days are manufactured by Giant or Fuji. However, this one is laid up in Spain, and because of that, it piqued my interest. I'm a bit of a bikie, and I love carbon bikes, and I also like these kind of rare carbon bikes. This version of the bike is the OMR frame set, so it's the high modulus carbon version of it. So it's sold in two different variants. This happens to be the lighter one, and the other one weighs about 200 grams more and isn't quite as stiff. What's the difference in kind of the real world application of the two frames is that this one is meant for racing. It's kind of meant for the Tour de France team. Confidence rides this bike. However, from just a direct user perspective or someone who just rides a bike every day, the frame is a little sketchy because if you do press on it in certain areas, you can actually see the frame flex. With that, I had never owned a bike that you could actually just physically just take two thumbs and indent the frame. You got to be really careful with this frame set because of that. But with that, it means that it's an ultralight bike that's going to perform probably far above any of the other models that Orbea is going to offer. So I acquired the frame only, and then I built the bike up myself. You can get it as a full build from Orbea. I don't like to do that because then I don't actually get to see how just the frame rides. I've ridden these components in the past, and I know exactly what to expect. So it allows me to give kind of a more conclusive review of the bike itself. One thing I like to point out with the frame is that you can get it in a similar color scheme. You can't get it in the exact same color scheme. And if you see the shark sticker on the front, that was something that I designed and I put on a lot of my bikes. If you're interested in getting one, you can just follow a link below. But back to the frame set and this bike as a whole. So the build has carbon wheels. You're going to have Shimano Ultegra components. It's going to have carbon fiber handlebars. We're also going to have a super light carbon fork that came with the frame set. And then I actually have a cheap Chinese seat post that actually works really, really well. I like it because I don't think that spending $250 on a seat post is really worth it. It doesn't really affect ride quality that much. So to talk a little bit about the size of this bike, it's labeled as a 55, however, it rides much closer to a 56. In fact, if you were expecting a 55, you'd be very, very disappointed because it's much larger than that. The person purchasing this bike should really expect a really comfortable climbing bike, something that's going to be pretty quick on the flats, not overly fast, and just a bike that's going to be generally comfortable and it's going to kind of keep you fresh for longer. That's kind of the new stance in the bike industry. We're moving away from stiff bikes, starting to get into more comfortable bikes. However, it's kind of catering to a consumer that really isn't just focused on racing or really focused on getting the absolute most out of a bike. And at this price point, if you're going to drop, again, $3,000 on a frame set or even $10,000 on a complete build, I'm assuming that you're probably going to be really into cycling and that this is your sport and you're going to put the miles in and that you just want to get the most performance out of that frame set. And I don't think that this is that product. When you really stand up and you're really cranking on the bike, you can feel some torsional flex in the front end, which I haven't really experienced with some other bike manufacturers. My guess is that it's just an ultralight version of this frame set, and the idea was that they wanted to make it as light as possible, not as stiff as possible. I happen to like really stiff bikes whenever I'm out riding, and I think that a lot of the torsional flexing will come from this kind of ornate fork design and having this kind of bow in. It's not the stiffest, but it does provide like a very cushioned ride quality. Do I really think it's worth it for the average person? I don't. You can go out and buy a complete bike for $3,000 that I think might outperform this entire platform. With that, you just have to know where to look. I think if you're kind of new to cycling and you just wanted an entry-level brand or a brand that you think you can trust or they're going to get a solid product out of, I would suggest maybe a Cannondale or Fuji. If money is no object, of course, Cervelo is going to make good bikes. There's going to be boutique brands like Willier, or you could even go with kind of a more household name like a Specialized. Would I get the ultralight version of the frame set? I wouldn't. It's not really worth the extra money to save 200 grams. You can save 200 grams in other parts of the bike. That will go a lot further in terms of performance. And then on top of that, because it's so light and having that frame flex, I'm also just afraid to put it on a bike rack or anything that has to straddle this top tube, because that could easily crush it. In fact, I don't even like sitting on the top tube. And these are things I really wish I would have known before acquiring the frame set. However, I own it now and I'm going to continue to ride it, at least for the next year. So if you have any questions about this build, the frame, or anything we didn't mention in the video, just write us a comment. We'll try to get back to you in the same day. If not, you can find the links below, or you can check out gearhideout.com to see the latest videos and other projects that we're working on. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.